In today's video, we uncover some of the most chilling big cat encounters ever recorded. From a jaguar strike in Brazil's Pantanal to a cougar ambush in Montana. But first, we head to rural Kenya, where an entire family meets an apex predator in their final moments. It was September 20th, 2017, on the rural outskirts of Taita Taveta County, Kenya. The late afternoon sun hung low over the horizon, staining the sky in muted shades of orange and gold. A dry wind moved through the acacia scrub, carrying with it the faint scent of dust and vegetation baked under months of relentless heat. Joseph Muli, 42, walked at the front of his family. A tall, broad-shouldered man, he was a subsistence farmer who had lived his entire life in the shadow of Tsavo National Park. Years of tending crops and livestock had made him wary but confident in the bush. Behind him walked his wife, Miriam, 39, carrying a woven basket of maize and cassava. Their two children, Daniel, 14, and Ruth, 11, trailed close, balancing small bundles of supplies brought from a relative's home. They'd walked this 2-mile track countless times. Familiarity dulled caution, and despite the area's wildlife crossings, Joseph believed real danger stayed deeper in the park. He had heard talk in the village that a lion had been spotted nearby a few days earlier, but it was the dry season. Livestock and waterholes were the focus of most predators' movements, not people walking in daylight. The warning was filed away, acknowledged, but dismissed. The path wound through thorny acacia and tall grass, cicadas droning under hornbill calls, the thick scrub hiding more than the goats or hares that usually stirred it. What the muleys likely didn't fully appreciate was the apex predator that ruled these lands. Lions in Tsavo were formidable creatures, with adult males typically weighing 350 to 500 pounds and possessing muscular bodies capable of short bursts of speed up to 35 miles per hour. Their bite force, approaching 650 pounds per square inch, could crush the windpipe or spine of prey within seconds. While they typically hunted at night, injured or desperate lions sometimes took greater risks, targeting slower-moving animals in daylight. A large male with a slight limp had been reported near the village by herders earlier that week. Rangers believed it had sustained injuries to its hindquarters, possibly from a territorial fight. A predator unable to chase its normal prey often turned to whatever it could catch, and humans on foot were slower than antelope. Passing a dry gully where brush thickened, Miriam spotted paw prints the size of dinner plates, but stayed silent. A faint cough came from within, masked by the wind, as they neared halfway home. A distant herder later recalled a deep growl before the lion burst from the thicket, closing the gap with startling speed despite its limp. It hit Joseph hard, forelimbs locking around him as ribs cracked and claws scraped bone. Miriam screamed and turned to pull her children back, but the movement triggered the lion's predatory focus. It released Joseph and lunged for her, jaws clamping onto her neck with enough pressure to silence her in seconds. Daniel tried to run, his sandals skidding in the dust, but the lion's paw hooked his leg and dragged him off balance. The claws tore through fabric and flesh, and he was pulled beneath the animal's body. Ruth's cry carried across the scrub before it was abruptly cut short. The lion's attacks were methodical: bite, pin, release, using sheer strength and precision to subdue each victim. The air was thick with the smell of blood and dust, the dry grass thrashing under the predator's weight. The entire assault lasted less than 5 minutes, brutal and efficient. From his vantage point 100 yards away, the herder froze, his voice catching in his throat as he took in the scene. The lion's tail flicked in agitation as it moved from one body to the next, ensuring none could rise again. By the time the first shouts rang out from approaching villagers, The lion stood over the still forms, chest heaving, muzzle darkened. The shouts grew louder, accompanied by the thud of running feet and the crack of sticks striking together. The lion backed away, pausing only once to glare at the intruders before disappearing into the scrub. Villagers surrounded the scene, the dust still hanging in the air. Joseph's body lay face down, one arm bent at an unnatural angle. Miriam's basket was overturned, maize spilling into the dirt. Daniel's sandal was several feet from where he lay, and Ruth's small bundle of supplies was torn open. The herder who had first seen the attack ran back toward the main road, shouting for help. He reached a group of men near the village water pump, and one of them used a mobile phone to call local authorities. It took just under an hour for wildlife rangers and police to arrive, their truck bouncing over the rough track toward the site. Rangers followed the tracks into the bush and identified the prints as belonging to the injured male. For 2 days, the search continued. The lion was eventually located resting in a shaded hollow, showing no signs of retreat when approached. It was shot on sight, a decision made quickly to prevent further attacks. Examination revealed deep scars along its flank and hip, confirming the earlier reports of injury. The Mauling family's funeral was held the next morning in the village square. Simple wooden coffins were laid side by side, surrounded by relatives and neighbors. The service was quiet, the only voices those of the elders reciting prayers. Local newspapers carried a small notice about the incident. There was no national coverage. In the days following, villagers avoided the path entirely, forcing them to take a longer route to the fields. The place where the attack occurred became overgrown, the silence there heavier than before. While Kenya reeled from the Mauling family's tragedy, in Brazil's Pantanal, fisherman Rafael Torres was about to learn that ignoring jaguar warnings could cost far more than a day's catch. It was June 3, 2014, along a remote stretch of riverbank in Brazil's Pantanal region. Pale dawn light turned the river mist to silver threads. Humid air carried the scent of wet plants and fish, broken only by capybara grunts and the soft slap of water. A stillness that felt like the forest holding its breath. Rafael Torres, 29, led the narrow trail, machete in hand. A skilled fisherman who knew the Pantanal's currents and fish patterns, his stubborn confidence often led him to ignore risks and navigate without guides. This trip, like many before, was to check and reset the fishing nets he'd left in the shallows overnight. His cousin, Marcos, had come along to help haul the morning's catch back to camp. In the weeks before, fishermen had reported jaguar sightings along this section of the river. A few claimed the animal had been approaching camps at night, its low cough audible from inside tents. Rafael dismissed the warnings, convinced caimans were the real threat, not hidden cats. He carried the machete more from habit than caution. The trail wound through dense gallery forest, roots twisting into the river. Damp leaves softened the ground, humid air clinging to the skin. Sunlight cut through the canopy in sharp patches, the thick undergrowth able to hide a full-grown animal just feet away. What Rafael likely didn't fully appreciate was the apex predator that ruled these waters. Jaguars in the Pantanal are the largest in the species, with adult males reaching over 250 to 320 pounds and measuring more than 6 feet from nose to tail. Unlike other big cats, jaguars often hunt by ambush from the water's edge, striking with short, explosive bursts before dragging their prey into cover or underwater. They are strong swimmers, capable of moving silently through flooded channels. That morning, Marcos spotted fresh tracks in the mud near the trailhead, broad, rounded prints without claw marks, but Rafael brushed them off. Near the river bend, Marcos stopped to free tangled line, while Rafael moved ahead into narrowing reeds. The birds fell silent, and even the usual rustle in the undergrowth ceased. The rustle came first, quick, heavy, and too close to be wind. Before Raphael could turn, the jaguar exploded from the cover of grass, its forepaws hitting his back and driving him face first into the muddy bank. The weight was crushing, forcing the air from his lungs. Claws raked across his ribs, tearing through shirt and skin with devastating precision. The jaguar's jaws clamped onto the base of his neck, teeth sinking deep into flesh and muscle. Raphael's body jolted with the force, the pain radiating into his shoulders like fire. He felt the hot breath of the animal and the rough scrape of its tongue between bites. The predator's bite force, capable of crushing bone, sent shockwaves through his entire body. Marcos's shout carried over the sound of splashing water as he ran forward, grabbing a thick branch from the ground. The blow to the jaguar's flank made it release, but only for a heartbeat. It turned, snarling, and lunged again, this time sinking its teeth into Raphael's left shoulder. The pressure was immense, and something gave way deep inside, muscle and sinew tearing under the incredible force. Marcos struck again, harder, shouting and swinging until the jaguar backed off, eyes locked on them with predatory focus before slipping into the water. The sound of its movement faded quickly into the current, leaving only the echo of violence and the metallic smell of blood mixing with river mud. Raphael lay on his side, coughing, mud and blood mixing beneath him. His neck and shoulder were slick with puncture wounds, each one a testament to the jaguar's killing efficiency. 3 deep claw lacerations ran diagonally across his torso, and his thigh bled steadily from another rake of claws. Marcos hauled him upright, half carrying, half dragging him back toward camp. Every step jarred the injuries, sending flashes of pain through Raphael's arm and side. Back at camp, Marcos shouted for help to 2 fishermen preparing to set out in another canoe. One of them grabbed a mobile phone and contacted the nearest settlement's ranger station. It took about an hour and 20 minutes for assistance to arrive by motorboat, the responders bringing basic medical supplies. At camp, they stabilized Raphael enough to move him into the canoe. The trip to the settlement took over an hour, the water seeming to drag against the hull. By the time they reached the dock, Raphael's skin was pale under the morning sun, his left arm hanging limp. A small clinic provided initial care until a helicopter arrived to take him to a regional hospital. Raphael survived, but the damage was lasting. Months of recovery left him with reduced mobility in his arm and deep scars across his torso that would never fully fade. In the village, the story of the attack spread quickly. Fishermen avoided that section of river for weeks, citing it as proof that jaguars, when hungry or territorial, would target humans without hesitation. 8 months after Rafael Torres survived his jaguar encounter in Brazil's wetlands, in the tidal mangroves of Bangladesh's Sundarbans, a widow in search of firewood would find that tiger warnings are never to be ignored. It was February 11, 2015, on the forested edge of the Sundarbans, Bangladesh. The tide had pulled back, exposing slick mudflats between the mangroves. The air carried the sharp scent of salt water mixed with the earthy smell of rotting vegetation. Overhead, the morning sky was muted by haze, diffusing the sunlight into a pale gray wash. It was quiet, except for the soft slosh of water in the channels, the kind of silence that made every rustle in the mangroves feel closer than it was. Rina Begum, 34, stepped carefully along the edge of a mangrove root, balancing a bundle of dry wood against her hip. A widow for 6 years, she supported herself by collecting firewood and selling small fish at the village market. She was known for her determination, often venturing farther into the forest than most women in her village. With the dry season reducing wood supplies near home, she had decided to take her 12-year-old niece, Afsana, deeper into the mangroves that morning. The plan was simple: gather wood for the week and return before the tide. Tiger attacks were common here, but Rena trusted daylight, noise, and her dulled sickle to keep her safe. Dense mangroves arched over the mud, roots slick with algae. Crabs darted through brackish pools, warm, still air broken by a kingfisher's call and the splash of fish. In the tightest growth, visibility dropped to a few yards. What Rena may not have fully grasped was that these waters belonged to an apex predator. The Bengal tiger of the Sundarbans is smaller than its inland cousins, but just as deadly. Males typically weigh 300 to 400 pounds, with a top speed of 35 miles per hour in short bursts. They are powerful swimmers, capable of crossing tidal channels to stalk prey with deadly precision. Unlike other tigers, Sundarbans tigers are known to see humans as part of their prey range, a behavior influenced by the overlap between human settlements and their hunting grounds. That week, a fisherman spotted fresh tiger tracks, and another heard its rasping roar at dawn. Rena listened but carried on, certain it was far away. As they moved deeper into the forest, she noticed long drag marks in the mud, possibly from a crocodile hauling itself into the water, but dismissed them. By mid-morning, their bundles were nearly full when the forest fell silent. A branch snapped ahead, sharp and deliberate. Rena saw only shadows and kept walking, unaware that a predator was watching. The attack came without warning. A flash of orange and black blurred through the mangroves, followed by the deep thud of impact as the tiger's weight hit Rena from behind. She dropped her bundle, the sticks scattering into the mud. The animal's claws raked down her back, tearing through her thin cotton blouse and opening deep parallel wounds with surgical precision. She stumbled forward, trying to twist away, but the tiger's jaws clamped onto her upper back, teeth piercing muscle and sinew. The force drove her to her knees, the predator's incredible bite force crushing tissue and bone. The attack was brutal and efficient, a demonstration of millions of years of evolutionary refinement designed to kill large prey quickly. Afsana screamed, the sound carrying across the water channels like a siren of terror. The tiger shifted its grip, dragging Rena sideways toward thicker cover with the methodical efficiency of a predator that had performed this ritual countless times. Each pull was punctuated by the wet sound of tearing fabric and the thump of her body against roots. Rena kicked and pushed against the mud, but her movements slowed as the predator's weight bore down. Her left arm went limp, the shoulder joint wrenched under the tiger's devastating bite. The tiger's powerful jaws worked with mechanical precision, designed to drag prey to secluded feeding areas where it could consume its kill without interference. Every movement demonstrated the evolutionary perfection that made these predators so deadly in their natural habitat. Afsana turned and ran toward the main trail, her cries drawing the attention of two nearby fishermen. They arrived within minutes, armed with long bamboo poles. Shouting and striking the poles against roots, they advanced, the noise startling the tiger enough to release its hold. It backed into the mangroves, ears flattened, before melting into the shadows with the fluid grace that made these predators nearly invisible in their environment. The fishermen carried Rena back toward the water's edge. One of them pulled out an old mobile phone and called a ranger station in a nearby village. It took about an hour for a small motorboat carrying rangers and a health worker to arrive, navigating through the winding tidal channels to reach them. Rena remained conscious but weak, her blouse soaked through with blood. The tiger's claws had left 3 deep parallel gashes across her back, each one a testament to the predator's killing efficiency. She was placed on a makeshift stretcher, ferried by boat to the dock, and then loaded onto a motorcycle that took her to the nearest clinic. From there, she was transferred to a larger hospital in Khulna. Rena survived the attack, but the damage was permanent. 3 deep scars marked her back, and she lost full strength in her left arm due to nerve injury caused by the tiger's crushing bite. She never returned to the deeper mangrove areas, relying instead on help from relatives to gather wood. The site of the attack became another unmarked place in the Sundarbans, where locals would point and say simply, "A tiger came here." A year after Rena Begum learned to live with her damaged arm, in India's Himalayan foothills, a veteran shepherd would find that decades on the mountains meant nothing when a leopard left him unable to walk his flock again. It was April 6, 2016, in the lower foothills near Shimla, Himachal Pradesh, India. The air was cool and dry, the kind that carried sound clearly across the slopes. Patches of sunlight broke through moving clouds, casting shifting patterns over the rocky ground. It was an ordinary grazing day for the shepherds, but the silence in the forest beyond felt heavier than usual. Ramesh Lal, 51, walked slowly behind his small herd of sheep, his weathered wooden staff in hand. He had been shepherding since he was a boy, following the same seasonal routes that his father had once taken. His livelihood depended on keeping the herd safe from straying into ravines or wandering too close to the forest. That afternoon, he had chosen a grazing spot near the edge of a pine stand, close enough for shade, but open enough to watch the animals spread out across the slope. In the weeks prior, the forest department had issued a general warning, advising herders to stay in open areas and work in pairs. Ramesh acknowledged the advice, but decided to work alone. The day was clear, and he believed that a leopard would stay hidden deeper in the forest unless provoked or starving. The open ridge was dotted with shrubs and boulders, sheep bells clinking in the quiet. Beyond, dense pines stood over a carpet of needles, resin scenting the air as clouds briefly dimmed the slope. What Ramesh likely didn't fully appreciate was the apex predator that ruled these mountains. Leopards in the Himalayan foothills are opportunistic predators, with adult males typically weighing 110 to 165 pounds. Their muscular build and flexible spine allow them to leap more than 20 feet in a single bound. These predators possess incredible stealth capabilities, their spotted coats providing perfect camouflage among the dappled shadows of rocky terrain. Known for dragging kills into cover to feed, they can overpower animals many times their own weight, targeting the neck or spine to incapacitate quickly. Their bite force can exceed 400 pounds per square inch, enough to crush vertebrae and sever major blood vessels. Ramesh had heard occasional rustles from the pine edge, but assumed it was his sheep moving through brush. At one point, he noticed a cluster of birds erupt from the tree line, but the movement was too brief to draw his attention for long. A small shadow shifted on the slope above him, hidden in the uneven light. Predatory eyes had been watching his every movement. Then the atmosphere changed. The sheep bells had gone quiet. The constant bleating of his flock seemed to pause. The attack came in a single, explosive motion. The leopard launched from a concealed boulder just above Ramesh's position, landing with its full weight on his back. The impact drove him face first into the rocky soil, knocking the staff from his grip. In the same instant, claws dug deep into his lower spine and hips with surgical precision. The pain was blinding, and his legs went numb almost immediately. The claws had severed nerve pathways in his lower back. The leopard's jaws clamped onto his side, teeth piercing through muscle and into the ribcage with devastating force. Its hind legs raked across his thighs in rapid, tearing motions, shredding the thick wool of his trousers and cutting into flesh. The attack was brutal and efficient, demonstrating millions of years of evolutionary refinement designed to kill prey quickly and effectively. The air filled with the sharp scent of blood, mixing with the musky odor of the predator's fur. Ramesh's shouts carried across the slope, raw and urgent, startling nearby shepherds tending their own flocks. The leopard's powerful jaws worked with mechanical precision, each bite calculated to cause maximum damage while maintaining its grip on the struggling victim. Two men dropped their tools and ran toward the sound, picking up rocks and thick sticks as they moved. They could see the leopard's spotted coat flashing in the sunlight as it shifted position over Ramesh. The animal turned its head toward them, ears flattened, its tail lashing the air in irritation. One of the men hurled a rock, striking the leopard in the shoulder. The predator snarled but didn't immediately retreat, its predatory instincts warring with its survival instincts. The second man rushed in, swinging his stick at the animal's flank. After several more strikes and shouts, the leopard backed away, melting into the shadows of the pines with the fluid grace that made these predators nearly invisible in their natural habitat. The shepherds quickly assessed Ramesh's condition. One stayed with him, while the other sprinted down the slope toward a roadside tea stall, known to have a landline phone. The call to the local forest department went through within minutes, and it took just over an hour for a jeep carrying forest rangers and a paramedic to reach the site. Ramesh lay motionless, face pale and breathing shallowly. The back of his shirt was shredded, soaked dark with blood. Deep puncture wounds marked his side, and 3 parallel gashes crossed each thigh. The rescuers lifted him carefully, avoiding movement in his lower body, and carried him down the slope toward the road. Hospital scans showed severe spinal damage and deep lacerations needing surgery. Ramesh survived, but the leopard's attack had severed nerves, ensuring he would never walk again. Months of rehabilitation followed, focused on adapting to life in a wheelchair. The scars on his thighs and torso healed into thick, raised lines, but the loss of mobility ended his shepherding career forever. Local authorities increased leopard monitoring in the region, setting up camera traps and patrolling grazing areas. The slope where the attack happened remained unused for grazing, the boulder above it still marked with faint scratch lines from the leopard's claws. As Ramesh adapted to a wheelchair, 3 years earlier in Montana's Bitterroot Range, a seasoned hiker would learn that experience couldn't save him from a fatal cougar attack. It was October 14th, 2013, along a remote hiking trail in the Bitterroot Range of western Montana. The sky was clear and crisp, the thin autumn air cold but warmed by the sun. Gold and rust leaves carpeted the slopes, crunching underfoot. With no wind, only the creak of shifting branches broke the stillness, carrying every sound farther than usual. A perfect day for a solo hike. Joshua David, 38, moved steadily along the incline, the straps of his day pack creaking with each step. A longtime outdoorsman, he was known among friends for his meticulous planning and physical endurance. He had spent decades hiking and hunting in Montana's backcountry, favoring remote trails far from the reach of cell service. His pack held water, a GPS, a knife, and a small first aid kit, but no firearm. Mark believed daylight hikes made cougar encounters unlikely. Hiking alone was intentional. Solitude was why he came. After checking the weather and telling his brother his route, he parked at the unmarked trailhead before sunrise. The trail climbed through conifer forest and open meadows toward a ridge for lunch. Pine scent mixed with the dry tang of needles, sunlight cutting through to catch dust from his boots. In shaded spots, frost-edged fallen leaves and distant woodpeckers echoed through the trees. What Joshua may not have realized was that these mountains were the domain of the cougar, also called the mountain lion, the largest wildcat in North America. Adult male cougars can exceed 150 pounds, Their long, muscular bodies are built for silent pursuit and explosive power. Masters of ambush, they can trail prey for minutes or even hours before striking, usually targeting the neck to crush the windpipe or sever the spinal cord with precision. Late in the morning, Joshua crossed a narrow trail between a drop-off and thick brush. Pausing to adjust his pack, he heard a faint shift in the brush above, saw nothing but a darting squirrel, and kept walking. Then the atmosphere changed. The birds had gone silent. The constant rustle of small animals in the undergrowth seemed to pause, as if the forest itself sensed the presence of a predator. The cougar had been trailing him for several minutes, its body low to the ground, moving with deliberate precision. Predatory eyes had been tracking his every movement, calculating the perfect moment to strike. When Mark stepped into the next open section, the animal dropped from a low rock ledge behind him with explosive force. The impact drove him forward, the force of roughly 115 to 220 pounds, slamming into his back with devastating power. His knees buckled, and he fell hard onto the dirt and leaves. The breath knocked from his lungs. The cougar's forepaws locked around his shoulders, claws cutting through jacket and shirt to dig into muscle with surgical precision. Its jaws closed on the side of his neck, teeth puncturing deeply into flesh and arteries. Joshua's arms flailed, reaching for his knife, but the predator shifted, pressing him into the ground with its full weight. The forest muffled his struggle as the cougar's skill as a predator became terrifyingly clear. The attack was methodical and brutal. The cougar's hind claws raked along his back, each pull widening the fabric and flesh beneath with devastating efficiency. Its jaws released only to bite again, this time closer to the base of the skull, targeting the spinal cord. Joshua's movements slowed within moments as the predator's crushing bite force severed vital connections. His legs kicked weakly, then stilled entirely as the cougar maintained its grip, breathing heavily through flared nostrils. Two hikers approaching from farther down the trail heard a single sharp cry before they rounded a bend and froze. They could see the cougar hunched over a motionless form, tail twitching with predatory satisfaction. One shouted, throwing a rock in its direction. The cougar lifted its head, ears back, muzzle dark with blood, and after a long pause, slipped into the trees, vanishing into silence with the fluid grace that made these predators nearly invisible. The hikers reached Joshua within seconds, but there was no response. His body lay still, the forest around them returning to its deceptive tranquility. One of them used a satellite phone to contact Ravalli County Search and Rescue. It took about an hour and 15 minutes for the first team to reach their location, traveling on foot from the nearest access point due to the rugged terrain. When rescuers arrived, Mark's pack was shredded, his GPS cracked in the dirt, and his knife still sheathed. Blood pooled beneath his head and shoulders, soaking the leaves. Authorities followed cougar tracks circling the area, along with signs that it had been shadowing the trail for some time. Wildlife officers tracked the animal for nearly 2 miles before losing it in rocky terrain. Traps were set in the area, but the cougar was never confirmed to have been captured. Joshua's body was airlifted out and returned to his family in Missoula. The trail where the attack occurred was temporarily closed, and warning signs about cougar activity were posted at nearby access points. For weeks afterward, few hikers ventured into that section of the Bitterroot Range, the memory of that silent stretch of trail now tied to the morning when solitude turned fatal. These stories prove why big cats are among the most formidable predators, silent, powerful, and unforgiving. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to love the one waiting for you on the end screen. Go check it out, and I'll see you there.